Open the pantry in any American kitchen in 1986, and the shelves told you everything about the decade. Bright foil wrappers, cardboard boxes with cartoon mascots grinning back at you. Flavors so strange they could only exist in a country that had decided the rules of food no longer applied. Your mom bought them because you begged. Your dad ate them after you went to bed. And one by one, without warning, every single one of them vanished. No recall notice, no goodbye sale, just empty shelf space where your favorite thing used to be, filled the next week by something you never asked for. So hit subscribe because here are 30 discontinued snacks from the 80s that genuinely need to come back. Number 30. Gatorgum. Somewhere around 1980, somebody at the Gatorade company looked at their sports drink and decided it needed a gum version. Gatorgum came in two flavors, orange and lemon lime, and it was marketed as thirst-quenching chewing gum. The idea was that you could chew it during a game and it would work like drinking Gatorade. It did not. The flavor lasted about 45 seconds, and then you were just working your jaw on a rubbery piece of nothing that vaguely tasted like a sports drink left in a hot car. But for a brief window in the early 80s, every kid on the Little League bench had a pack stuffed in the back pocket of their uniform. It disappeared by the middle of the decade, and nobody could explain why it existed in the first place. Number 29. Wacky wafers. Wonka made a lot of candy that looked like it came from a fever dream, but wacky wafers were simple. Big, flat, disc-shaped candies about the size of a silver dollar, stacked in a clear wrapper so you could see every color. Grape, watermelon, green apple, banana, and strawberry. You would peel one off the stack, hold it up to the light, and bite into something that was basically pure compressed sugar with a decent fruit flavor. Kids traded them like currency at the lunch table. You would offer 2 grapes for 1 watermelon, and the negotiations got serious. The banana ones were always the last to go, sitting at the bottom of the stack while everything else disappeared. Wonka quietly discontinued them in the early 90s, and nothing in the candy aisle today fills that exact gap. Number 28. The Reggie Bar. In 1978, Standard Brands released a candy bar named after Reggie Jackson, right after his legendary 3-homer World Series performance. It was a round disc of chocolate, caramel, and chopped peanuts, and the wrapper had Jackson's face right on the front. Opening day at Yankee Stadium, they handed them out for free, and fans threw thousands of them onto the field after Jackson's first home run. The bar itself was decent, a little like a flattened Baby Ruth with better caramel, but it was really the spectacle that made it legendary. Sales dropped once the novelty wore off, and by the mid-80s, it was gone. But the image of candy bars raining down onto a baseball diamond is something no modern snack launch could ever recreate. Number 27. Doodads. Before Chex Mix owned the snack mix category, Nabisco had doodads, and plenty of people will tell you doodads were better. The bag had this chaotic mix of pretzels, cheese crackers, peanuts, and these seasoned little breadstick pieces that carried most of the flavor. You would reach into the bag, grab a fistful, and every handful tasted slightly different depending on the ratio. Your dad kept them on the coffee table during football games. When Nabisco discontinued them in the 90s, Chex Mix swooped in and took over. But Chex Mix was always a little too uniform, a little too polished. Doodads had a roughness to them that made them feel homemade. Every bag was a little different, and that unpredictability was the whole point. Number 26. Ice Cream Cones Cereal. General Mills put this out in 1986, and the concept was insane. Cereal shaped like tiny ice cream cones with a chocolate or vanilla coating. You poured milk on it, and for about 90 seconds you were eating something that actually tasted like a dessert pretending to be breakfast. Your parents knew it was candy. You knew it was candy. General Mills put a wholesome family photo on the box and everyone just agreed to pretend otherwise. The vanilla version had this strange, powdery sweetness that coated your teeth, and the milk at the bottom of the bowl turned into flavored liquid sugar. It did not last long in production because it was essentially a bowl of candy with extra steps. But while it lasted, Saturday mornings were never the same. Number 25. Nestle Alpine White. Nestle released this bar in 1986, and it was exactly what it sounds like. White chocolate studded with whole almonds. Simple as that. No caramel layer, no cookie crunch, no gimmick, just smooth white chocolate and almonds in a clean white wrapper. The television commercials showed people skiing down alpine mountains, which had absolutely nothing to do with the candy. But it worked. Alpine White carved out its own space because nobody else was doing a white chocolate bar at that scale. When Nestle pulled it in the early 90s, white chocolate bars mostly disappeared from American shelves for years. People still bring it up with a kind of reverence, like it was the one they never should have taken away. The white wrapper alone was enough to spot it from across the store. Number 24. Sodalicious Fruit Snacks. General Mills had a genius idea with this one. Fruit snacks shaped exactly like tiny soda bottles, each one a different cola or soda flavor. Root beer, grape soda, orange, cherry cola. You would dump them out of the pouch onto your desk at school and line them up by flavor before eating them, because that is what kids do. The root beer ones were the best by a wide margin. They were chewier than regular fruit snacks and had this fizzy, almost tangy aftertaste that actual fruit snacks never replicated. General Mills discontinued them by the early 90s and replaced them with more standard fruit-shaped options. None of those replacements had the fizzy kick, and nobody remembers them with the same fondness. The soda bottle shape was half the fun. Number 23. Carnation Breakfast Bars. Before granola bars took over every checkout lane in America, Carnation made these dense, foil-wrapped breakfast bars that your mom handed you on the way out the door. They came in flavors like chocolate chip, peanut butter with chocolate chips, and honey and oats. The texture was somewhere between a brownie and a protein bar, chalky but sweet enough that you did not care. The chocolate chip version had this specific crumbly quality that fell apart if you tried to eat it over carpet. Carnation called them a complete breakfast, which was a stretch, but they were better than skipping food entirely. They faded out as the market shifted to lighter, crunchier bars in the early 90s, and nothing since has matched that specific dense, slightly too sweet chew. Number 22. Hubba Bubba Bubble Jug. This was less about the gum and more about the container. A tiny plastic jug shaped like a moonshine bottle, filled with powdered bubble gum. You unscrewed the cap, tapped some powder into your palm, tossed it in your mouth, and chewed until it formed an actual piece of gum. The grape flavor was overpowering. Your tongue turned purple. Your fingers were sticky for the rest of the afternoon. It was completely impractical as a gum delivery system, and that was the entire appeal. You felt like you were getting away with something at school, shaking powder into your mouth while the teacher was writing on the chalkboard. The jug ran out fast, usually within 2 recesses, but the theater of it was worth every cent. Number 21. Bar None. Hershey launched Bar None in 1987, and it was built to compete with Twix and Kit Kat. Chocolate-coated wafers layered with chocolate creme and crushed peanuts, all wrapped in a milk chocolate shell. The first version had 2 wafer sticks in the pack, and the combination of crunch and smooth chocolate made it one of the best candy bars of the decade. Then, Hershey reformulated it in the early 90s, adding caramel and turning it into something softer and messier, and people lost interest. The original version was clean and crisp. The update made it just another candy bar. Bar None was discontinued entirely by 1997. When people say they miss it, they mean the first version, before Hershey tried to fix something that was never broken. Number 20. Jell-O Pudding Pops. If you had a freezer in the 1980s, there is a very good chance it had a box of pudding pops in it. Jell-O took their pudding, froze it on a stick, and created something that was neither ice cream nor popsicle, but somehow better than both. The texture was the thing. When you pulled one out of the freezer, the outside had this thin, frozen shell, almost glossy, and when you bit through it, the inside was this creamy, slightly soft pudding that had not fully frozen solid. Chocolate was the best seller, but vanilla and banana were in the rotation too, and the swirl version that mixed chocolate and vanilla was the one every kid grabbed first. The commercials were everywhere, and for most of the decade, they were one of the top-selling frozen treats in the country. You ate them on the back porch in the summer, and the stick always got soggy and started to bend before you finished. The drip factor was real. Pudding Pops left brown streaks down your arm and onto whatever shirt your mom had just washed. Jell-O eventually licensed the name out, and a few companies tried to bring them back, but every revival version tasted like frozen chocolate milk, not like the original. The original Pudding Pop had a density to it, a richness that came from the actual pudding base. Whatever shortcut the revivals took, it showed. The original Pudding Pop had a ritual to it. You stood in front of the freezer, peeled the wrapper back slowly because it always stuck, and then you had maybe 5 minutes before the whole thing started melting faster than you could eat it. The 80s version remains the gold standard, and everyone who had one knows the difference. Number 19. Giggles Cookies. These came out in the mid-80s, and the gimmick was straightforward. Sandwich cookies with smiley faces stamped onto the top. One side had vanilla cookies with a chocolate filling, and the other variety flipped it with chocolate cookies and vanilla creme. The face design was crude, more like 2 dots and a curve pressed into the dough, but kids loved them precisely because they looked goofy. You bit the head off first, obviously. Everybody did. The cookies themselves were average, somewhere between an Oreo and a store-brand sandwich cookie, but the personality of that stamped face gave them an identity that plain round cookies could never match. You would sit at the kitchen table after school, pull one apart, eat the filling side first, and then hold up the face side to show your brother before biting the head off. Every kid did it the same way. They disappeared quietly by the late 80s, pulled from shelves without any announcement, and nobody at the company ever publicly explained why a cookie with that much personality got the silent treatment. Number 18. Screaming Yellow Zonkers. Long before flavored popcorn became a gourmet thing, Screaming Yellow Zonkers were doing it in a tall, loud, black and yellow box covered in tiny printed jokes. The popcorn inside was coated in a buttery, sweet glaze, somewhere between caramel corn and kettle corn, but lighter and crunchier than either. Lincoln Snacks made them starting in the 1960s, and they were a staple through the entire 80s. The box was half the experience. People stood in the kitchen reading the jokes while they ate, the way you would read the back of a cereal box. When they finally went away in the early 2000s after the brand changed hands multiple times, the replacement options never had the same personality. The popcorn market moved toward plain white cheddar and forgot that sometimes the packaging is part of the snack. Number 17. Keebler Tato Skins. Now, speaking of Keebler, they made some of the best snack food of the 1980s, and Tato skins were proof. They were not potato skins in any traditional sense. They were thin, crispy potato-based chips shaped to look like the skin of a baked potato, loaded with flavors like sour cream and chives, baked potato with cheese, and cheddar and bacon. The cheddar and bacon flavor was unreasonably good. It hit somewhere between a Pringle and an actual loaded potato skin, and every bag was gone before the second commercial break of whatever you were watching on television. Keebler eventually discontinued them, though similar products have popped up under different brands. None of them had that specific seasoning blend, that crispy thin crunch, or that greasy residue on your fingers that you secretly enjoyed licking off during commercial breaks. Number 16. Hi-C Ecto Cooler. When the Real Ghostbusters animated series took over Saturday morning cartoons in the late 1980s, Hi-C released a tie-in juice box flavor that outlasted the show by over a decade. Ecto Cooler was bright green, citrus-flavored, and it stained everything it touched. Lunchboxes, shirts, fingers, tongues. The flavor itself was basically tangerine and orange, nothing exotic, but the green color and the cartoon ghost on the box turned it into something mythical. Kids who had never watched the cartoon wanted Ecto Cooler because of how it looked in the cafeteria. Hi-C kept it on shelves under different names into the late 90s before finally pulling it. A brief revival came and went, but the original run, with Slimer on the box, packed into a brown bag lunch next to a peanut butter sandwich, that was the version that mattered. Number 15. O'Boise's Chips. While we are in Keebler territory, O'Boise's deserve their own moment. These were rippled potato chips with a heavier crunch than most competitors and a flavor that was almost aggressively potato-forward. The sour cream and onion variety tasted like someone actually put real sour cream on a chip and then figured out how to make it shelf-stable. The ridges were deeper than Ruffles, and the chip itself was thicker, so you could actually scoop dip without the chip snapping in half. Keebler positioned them as a premium chip, and for a while, they earned it. You could put O'Boise's next to any Frito-Lay product at a party and watch them disappear first. The bag had a satisfying weight to it, and the chips inside were packed tight because the ridges locked together like tiny puzzle pieces. By the early 90s, they were off shelves, beaten out by Frito-Lay's distribution power rather than by flavor. Another case of a better product losing to a bigger company. Number 14. Pizzaria's Pizza Chips. Of everything Keebler made in the 1980s, Pizzaria's might be the most missed. They came out in the late 80s and they were hexagonal-shaped chips dusted with a pizza seasoning that actually tasted like pizza. Not pizza-adjacent, not vaguely Italian. They tasted like someone took a slice of pepperoni pizza, dehydrated it, and turned it into a chip. The red bag with the Italian flag colors was instantly recognizable, and the smell when you opened it was enough to make everyone in the room turn their head. The seasoning stuck to your fingers, and you would lick it off between handfuls because wasting any of that flavor felt criminal. At slumber parties, at after-school hangouts, at the baseball diamond concession stand, pizzarias were the chip you asked for by name. The cheese and pepperoni balance was perfect. Not too salty, not too bland, just this warm, savory, slightly spicy coating that no other chip brand has managed to reproduce. Keebler discontinued them in the mid-90s, and the internet has been begging for their return ever since. Petitions have been signed, fan pages have been built. Every few years a rumor circulates that they are coming back, and every time it turns out to be false. What made pizzarias different was the layering. Most pizza chips just dust the surface with tomato powder and call it a day. Pizzarias tasted like the seasoning was baked into the chip itself, like the flavor went all the way through. You could eat one with your eyes closed and your first thought would be pizza, not chip. Doritos, Pringles, and every store brand on earth has released a pizza-flavored chip at some point, and not a single one comes close. The formula is apparently gone. Whatever Keebler put in that seasoning blend, they took it with them. Number 13. Bonkers Fruit Chews. Bonkers showed up in 1984, and the commercials were more famous than the candy itself. Giant pieces of fruit would fall from the sky and flatten people. That was the entire premise. The tagline was simply the word bonkers. The candy was a rectangular fruit chew with a softer, fruity center running through the middle, almost like a fruit-filled caramel. Grape and strawberry were the dominant flavors, and the texture was chewier than Starburst but softer than a Tootsie Roll. Nabisco made them, and for a few years they were everywhere. Then, like a lot of 80s candy, they just stopped appearing on shelves without any announcement. The commercials ended, the displays came down, and Bonkers became another name you bring up when someone asks what you miss about the 80s. Number 12. Planters Cheese Balls. These came in a blue canister with a resealable lid, and that lid was a complete lie because nobody ever resealed it. You popped it open, reached in with your whole hand, and pulled out a fistful of bright orange, airy, cheese-dusted puffs that dissolved on your tongue before you even started chewing. The cheese powder got everywhere. Under your fingernails, on the remote control, on the couch cushion. Your fingers were stained orange for the rest of the evening, and you wore it like a badge. Planters discontinued the original cheese balls in the early 2000s, and while they briefly brought them back for a limited run, the revival version was denser and less airy. The original had a melt-in-your-mouth quality that the comeback never captured. Number 11. Fruit Wrinkles. General Mills had a real grip on the fruit snack market in the 80s, and Fruit Wrinkles were their strangest entry. These were small, wrinkly, slightly shriveled-looking fruit snacks in a foil pouch, and the texture was different from anything else on the shelf. They were chewier, denser, almost gummy, but not quite. The flavors were standard: grape, cherry, strawberry, orange. But the wrinkled, slightly rough surface made them feel exotic compared to the smooth, flat fruit snacks that dominated the category. Kids liked the ugliness of them. They looked like tiny dried-up fruit pieces, which somehow made them more fun to eat. You would pour them into your palm at the school cafeteria and pick through the colors, saving the grape ones for last because they had the most flavor. The foil pouch kept them from drying out, and there was a specific peeling sound when you tore it open that every kid in the 80s would recognize. When General Mills moved on to smoother, shinier fruit snack shapes, fruit wrinkles just vanished. Number 10. Hostess Chocodiles. Imagine a Twinkie but dipped entirely in a thick layer of chocolate. That was a Chocodile, and for most of its existence you could only get them on the West Coast. People in California, Oregon, and parts of Arizona grew up thinking Chocodiles were a normal thing, while the rest of the country had no idea they existed. The chocolate shell had a slight snap to it, firmer than a chocolate coating on ice cream but softer than a candy bar. Inside, the same golden cake and cream filling as a standard Twinkie, but the chocolate elevated it into something genuinely special. Hostess tried nationwide distribution a few times but never committed to it. They quietly discontinued Chocodiles, and the West Coast has never fully recovered. Number 9. Keebler Magic Middles. One more Keebler entry because they earned it. Magic Middles were shortbread cookies with a pocket of chocolate or peanut butter fudge baked right into the center. You could not see the filling from the outside. The cookie looked plain, ordinary, like something your grandmother would serve on a plate. Then, you bit in and hit that warm, soft, slightly gooey middle, and it changed the whole experience. Keebler ran commercials showing the filling oozing out in slow motion, and it worked. Everyone wanted to find out what was hiding inside that boring-looking cookie. They were discontinued in the mid-90s, and every few years somebody posts a photo of the old bag on the internet, and thousands of people lose their minds in the comments. Number 8. PB Max. Mars released PB Max around 1989, and nothing else in the candy aisle came close to its ambition. A whole wheat cookie base, a thick slab of creamy peanut butter on top, and the entire thing enrobed in milk chocolate. The peanut butter was the real kind, slightly grainy, rich, not the waxy artificial version you found in other candy bars. When you bit into a PB Max, you got this layered experience. The snap of the chocolate shell, the smooth density of the peanut butter, and then the cookie crumbling underneath to give it a completely different texture. It was heavier than a Reese's cup, more satisfying than a Butterfinger, and unlike anything else in the candy aisle. Sales were reportedly strong, somewhere around $50 million a year, according to a former Mars executive. And then Mars discontinued it anyway. The rumor that circulated for years was that the Mars family personally disliked peanut butter, which sounds absurd for a company that also makes Snickers, but nobody at Mars ever offered a better explanation. PB Max had a loyal following that never got a satisfying reason for why it disappeared. No reformulation, no gradual phase-out, just gone. What sticks with people is the weight of it. A PB Max felt substantial in your hand, heavier than a Snickers, denser than a Twix. You unwrapped it, and the peanut butter smell hit you before you even took a bite. The peanut butter market in candy has exploded since then, with dozens of peanut butter cups and bars and bites lining every shelf. None of them combine cookie, real peanut butter, and chocolate the way PB Max did. It remains the great unsolved mystery of American candy, a product that sold well, tasted great, and was killed for reasons nobody will confirm. Number 7. Jell-O 1, 2, 3. This was not a snack you bought off a shelf. It was a box mix, and the magic was in the science. You made one batch of Jell-O, poured it into a glass, and it separated on its own into 3 distinct layers: a creamy mousse on top, a fluffy middle, and a firm gelatin base at the bottom. 3 textures from one pour. Kids watched it happen in the refrigerator like it was a science experiment, pressing their faces against the shelf to see the layers forming. The strawberry version was the most popular, with that bright red bottom layer visible through the glass. Jell-O discontinued the mix sometime in the late 80s, and the one-pour, 3-layer trick has never been replicated by any other product on the market. Number 6. Willy Wonka. Oompas. Before Wonka focused entirely on nerds and sweethearts, they made Oompas, a small round candy that came in pairs. One half was coated in chocolate, the other half in peanut butter, and you were supposed to eat them together. The combination was reminiscent of a Reese's Pieces but crunchier, with a harder candy shell that cracked when you bit down. The peanut butter side had a slight saltiness to it that balanced the sweeter chocolate half. Wonka marketed them with the Oompa Loompa characters, which made sense, and the packaging was loud and colorful in the way that only Wonka products could get away with. They did not survive long into the 80s, overshadowed by the massive success of Nerds, which became Wonka's flagship and consumed most of their marketing budget. Number 5. The Marathon Bar. If you were around in the late 70s and early 80s, you remember this one by shape alone. The Marathon Bar was 8 inches of braided caramel covered in milk chocolate, and the wrapper had a ruler printed on the back so you could measure it yourself. That ruler was genius marketing because every kid immediately held it up next to every other candy bar in the store to prove that the Marathon was bigger. The caramel was chewy, almost taffy-like, and eating one took genuine commitment. You could not rush through a Marathon Bar. The bar was discontinued in 1981 when Mars rebranded and shifted focus. But the memory of that braided shape and the ruler on the back has outlasted almost every candy bar that replaced it. Number 4. Shark Bites. Fruit Corners launched Shark Bites fruit snacks in 1988, and they became one of the defining lunchbox snacks of the late 80s almost overnight. Each pouch had a handful of gummy shark shapes in different colors and flavors, but the real prize was the Great White. The Great White Shark was opaque, slightly larger than the others, and had a completely different texture, softer, chewier, almost like a gummy bear that had been sitting in the sun. You would tear open the pouch and immediately dig through the pile looking for it. Some kids traded them at the lunch table like currency. The regular sharks were fine, fruity, and firm with that slightly waxy coating that stuck to your teeth, but nobody remembers those. Everybody remembers the white one. General Mills eventually reformulated the line, changed the shapes, swapped out the Great White for something less exciting, and the magic disappeared. By the mid-90s, the original version was gone entirely. Dozens of fruit snack brands have come and gone since then, but none of them understood what Shark Bites figured out. One rare piece in every bag turns a snack into an event. Number 3. Astro Pops. These rocket-shaped lollipops had been around since the 1960s, but the 80s were their golden age. 3 colors, 3 flavors, stacked on top of each other in a hard candy cone that tapered to a sharp point. Cherry on top, then passion fruit in the middle, then pineapple at the base. You started at the wide end and worked your way down, and each layer tasted completely different. The sharp tip at the bottom was a genuine hazard. Kids poked each other, stabbed through paper bags, and used them as pretend swords on the playground. They survived in various forms for decades, but were never as widespread as they were in the 80s, when every convenience store checkout had a jar of them sitting right on the counter. Number 2. Pepsi AM. In 1989, Pepsi looked at the morning coffee market and thought they could compete with a cola. Pepsi AM had roughly 25% more caffeine than regular Pepsi, and the idea was that people would drink it with breakfast instead of coffee. The television ads showed business people cracking one open at the breakfast table. The problem was obvious to everyone except the marketing department. Nobody wanted flat cola with their eggs. The extra caffeine was not enough to make it feel like a real morning drink, and the sweetness at 7 in the morning turned most people off immediately. Pepsi pulled it within a year. It stands today as a textbook example of a product that only makes sense in a boardroom and falls apart the moment a real person tries to drink it before 9 in the morning. Number 1. Original New York Seltzer. This was the drink that made flavored sparkling water cool long before LaCroix, long before Spindrift, long before anyone used the word artisanal to describe bubbles. Original New York Seltzer came in glass bottles with bold, colorful labels, and the flavors were wild for the time. Vanilla cream, peach, raspberry, root beer, black cherry. The bottle showed up at every pool party, every backyard barbecue, every school dance in the mid-'80s. The raspberry flavor had a tartness that hit the back of your throat, and the vanilla cream was like drinking a cream soda that someone had given a college education. They were everywhere, and then they were nowhere. The company went under in the early 90s, crushed by the bigger soda brands who had started launching their own clear and flavored alternatives. A brief relaunch happened years later, but it never recaptured the original moment. It was the drink that was 10 years ahead of its time, and by the time the world caught up, it had already disappeared. 30 snacks. 30 things that used to sit on a shelf somewhere between the register and the bread aisle, waiting for you to grab them without thinking. Now they only exist in the part of your brain that activates when someone says the right name at the right moment. Drop a comment and tell us which one stopped you mid-scroll. Which wrapper can you still picture? Which flavor do you swear you can still taste? Share this with someone who grew up raiding the same pantry you did, and subscribe to the channel so we can keep pulling these things back into the light.